Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax. 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
When choosing a dentist for our family, Tupelo Smiles was the answer for us. They greet us with warm smiles right when we walk in the door, and they make us feel so welcome. We love Tupelo Smiles.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon here. We are tracking an active day and potential here for storms continuing into tonight. But here's the thing. We still believe that the peak severe weather risk is in the rearview mirror. More on this full threat coming up here in a couple of moments as we look ahead at what will continue to be likely a fairly active forecast into tonight. Again, only on Mississippi Live Weather, debuting something that you can find nowhere else, Stormfinder. We're going to be looking at where we're most likely to see the difference between just rain showers. We've got a lot of those. And where this is going to be something more than that, where we're talking about storms, and then, of course, you go to the next step beyond that. We'll look at the triple threat on where we're most likely to see those peak threats for severe weather, including still some rotation, some gusty wind, but I want to be crystal clear. Most of these storms are going to be below severe limits, and then much cooler, and weather ahead, I mean, not just cooler, much cooler, looking toward the weekend, in particular, latter part of the weekend, first part of next week. We'll be down there below freezing for low temperatures again, which is what we expect for this time of the year. But progressing through this evening, as you can see here on our forecast over the first 12, 66 there at 6 p.m. Rain coverage does ratchet up between now and midnight. I know we always have a lot of folks that have some nerves going on related to the active weather. We've had storms earlier. We don't always get multiple rounds. I think because we've had multiple rounds, we've kind of, to a certain extent, spread out our most significant threat. We'll talk more on that, of course, here in a couple of minutes. Appreciate everybody for joining us on all of the social media chats with this. Let's talk severe threats right off the top here. Again, this is something that we have continued to watch. We have now reduced confidence level, again, as we did earlier today, low on the spin-up tornado threat this far north. It remains relatively limited. Strong wind gusts, not an impossibility, but we have reduced this confidence level down from a medium to a low. Hail threat has been low, and flash flooding threat still one that we are considering at this time. Let's get and look at the kind of wider shot here on the overall threats. You can see our severe threat region has continued to be trimmed southward through the day here, as confidence, again, with the fact that we're struggling to get that most unstable air north, as we talked about all week long. The midweek front pushed the moisture south. How much was going to return north? Would we have enough? That has been a limiting factor. Thankfully, still is the case this evening. If you're up here in Tupelo or Bruce or Grenada watching us, your chances of seeing tornadoes remain very, very limited. It's not zero, but it is really low. And I'm saying that to say I would not spend this evening particularly worried about that. You look at the tornado threat, as you can see it analyzed here for locations. Columbus back toward Eupora, southward, the greatest threat, and even then, again, this is not a high risk by any stretch of the imagination. We look at the number of reports possible out of this, and this may be the most important graphic here, shows that there is no chance of strong tornadoes as far as this evening is concerned. As we bring it back here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar, we're going to look at kind of the composite here around the region for a moment and show that there are some tornado warnings back into Louisiana. We did talk about this potential last night. Put this into motion, make this a 3-hour loop here for a moment. We talked last night about, again, that frontal boundary that we do have in the area, and that will be something that, again, is draped kind of in here, and it's possible that some of these thunderstorms could maintain themselves out here as they get a little bit closer to us. When we look at the fuel for thunderstorms, one of the ways to show that is using the measure of moisture based on the same scale as the temperature. That's the dew point here. As you'll note that dew point has gone up a bit over the course of the last few hours. We talk a lot about these 70-degree dew points. When these numbers here in the 70s, that's a lot of fuel. That's where we're most likely to see rotating storms, just like was the case up here farther north. Up here, microphone is off? Hold on. I just want to double check here. Some folks saying microphone is off. Gabe, I need to bring you in. Is my microphone good behind the scenes? Or is that just people being people? I can't get my mouse on the right screen there, Gabe. So are we good on mics?
It looks like audio levels are coming in. Go ahead and try talking one more time.
Okay. I think some people are okay, saying something picking up from camera/audio room. So don't know exactly what they're saying on that there, but you know, if the mic's good, the mic's good. We'll go ahead and listen. Here's what I'll say, Gabe. Click the record button for a couple of seconds while I'm talking here in a minute, and then go ahead and download that on your phone and double check and make sure we're good on that, or listen on your phone, and you can do that. Okay, well, I'll kind of pick it up from here there, but either way, moisture kind of working its way northward, and so this is this zone back out here south of Greenville into the Delta, where it's possible that as this storm kind of rides this both moist air and also warmer air, that the potential is a little bit greater to possibly see maybe a brief tornado. Again, we kind of have that warm front in here, and so that is that zone that we are watching very closely for that potential. So as we bring it back in here, and we bring it back to kind of our closest radar site on Mississippi Live Weather Radar, there's nothing of significance or concern out there at this point. While our cameras show a lot of rainfall, like for example down here in the Caledonia area, northern part of Lowndes County, kind of on the northern side of that there, I want to point out this measure of moisture, that dew point at 65. Again, the closer that is to 70, the more likely we have unstable air that could possibly try to produce tornadoes. In the rainfall, where we find locations on the west side of Starkville there, our camera, again, 68, that dew point a little bit higher at that spot there. And if we go kind of back to Rolling Fork, for example, in the Delta location, I'm watching pretty closely, of course, a significant history of tornadoes in that location, obviously, and that measure of moisture is a little higher. So we are very marginal on whether or not we're going to be significant enough on the way this is kind of aligned to produce that chance for severe weather. So as we look into the remainder of this evening, again, this front is kind of the story. It's the limiting factor on how far north things are able to move and whether or not these storms are going to be able to be strong enough to actually fully make it into our area in severe fashion. Everything south of this front, and that's still about 2/3 of the area, on Mama Justice Doppler radar, you're in the zone where we're still watching the potential that these could be come strong to severe. And for Greenville out there, as we kind of look a little closer at that, we will look in more detail on Mississippi Live Weather Radar at that approaching storm here in a couple of minutes. But first, again, I want to kind of show you a new product here on Mississippi Live Weather, something you'll see only on Mississippi Live, and that is Stormfinder. Here's why this is important, what this shows. This shows lightning strikes, in particular the concentration of lightning strikes, layered on top of the storm chances, basically an aggregate of a lot of other projections and where they're placing, again, the greatest chances. When you start to see the combination of brighter on both of those, the storm chances and their significance remain the most significant there. So in saying that, notice how we do have some clusters, again, down here closer to Meridian, down there south of Macon, where we have a greater likelihood of these being, again, stronger storms. Maybe this should be stronger Stormfinder. But again, remaining pretty limited for most locations into this evening. You will notice, again, it is this kind of front area here, this lead group of storms that are most likely to be somewhat strong on that section there. Hold on. Someone says I'm in tunnel. Hey, the issue is that this mic's not on. This will fix that.
Perfect.
I apologize. Thank you, whoever that was there. Larry, hey, if I sound like garbage, your job is to say, Matt, wake up. You sound like garbage. Okay. So as you can see, it is that lead area where there's a little more instability ahead, at least on this projection, that has those storms, as you can see, quite a bit stronger out into Alabama. Now, what's interesting about this is if you look closely here, and we'll look at Futurecast in more detail with just the precipitation mode on this in a minute, you can still see quite a bit of red on that section there, as well as on what's happening on the leading edge of that. So the takeaway is this, is most of our thunderstorms should be somewhat weaker here in the northern part of the state. I mean, you can see they keep regenerating down south, but as they lift farther north, there's just not quite enough fuel in this projection. While there's one last round, looks pretty heavy, and that looks heavier on that than some of our projections had even earlier today. That keeps the majority of that and its strongest activity to the south. So that's Stormfinder, something you'll find only here on Mississippi Live. Hopefully helps make things a little bit clearer. We're trying to put together products that kind of boil down complex things and make them as simple as possible. So as we go throughout the next few hours here, as you can see, we'll continue to have those temperatures working their way from the upper 50s and the lower 60s through tomorrow. But that's about it. Noontime, you can see our warmest temperatures there dropping into the evening on some much, much cooler winds out of the northwest, continuing to come in on the backside of this storm system. Okay, in 60 seconds, we're going to walk hour by hour again through our Futurecast there. We're going to look at in more detail at Mama Justice Doppler radar on where some of those storms are a little heavier out in the Delta. We're going to talk about some comparisons between projections here and how they're aligning as we try to take everything into focus as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
Look at Wanda, ready to rock her big presentation. But first, lunch. Sweet Pepper's Deli. Delicious, celebratory, but is it quick? The Cobb salad.
Oh, I hit the wrong button. Gabe, hit previous. I did that earlier. I'm going to have to reprogram my stuff back here so it doesn't actually do that. Hold on.
Right now.
Look at Wanda, ready to rock her big presentation. But first, lunch. Sweet Pepper's Deli. Delicious, celebratory, but is it quick? The Cobb salad. Tender oven roasted chicken, topped with cheese. Prepared, plated, and served? In 6 minutes? Is this for real? Well, of course. Well done, Wanda. Sweet Pepper's Deli. Yes, ma'am. Life is sweet.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Well, looking at your Mississippi Live Weather Radar, we referenced this before the break. One of the stronger storms closer to our area, kind of a storm moving almost directly north. Current time is again 5:12. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather here from the Room to Room Weather Center and on Mamba Justice Doppler radar. Moving northward here, this would be more what we call a left split, more likely to probably have, again, some small hailstones with it and gusty winds. One thing you'll immediately notice on here is we just don't have a whole lot of lightning strikes showing up with this as well. So one of the questions I have for you in this scenario, and really kind of all scenarios here going forward in this situation, is kind of what you are seeing. And I'll show Gabe where this is located here. If you go to everything, go all the way to the bottom for now. I'll have to probably give you a button for it at some point here. There's a way in which you at home can share what you are seeing there. You can see that chat. We can talk back and forth about what you're watching, and so we're watching there in Woodland. So glad again that you're supporting us here, Linda, and I appreciate you everything to do it. Where can we find Stormfinder on the app? That's going to be something that we show you on the broadcast. At this point, we don't have it on the app. I do think that's something that, Gabe, if we mark that down on our to-do list, which is not short, we could potentially add there as well as a product that people at home could be able to see and kind of understand. But storms there, again, close to Rolling Fork. We showed that camera a minute ago. I want to revisit that camera here, looking towards some of one of the heavier thunderstorms that we have. And again, it's just a lot of heavy rainfall. This is what most of us will see. This is one of the locations even most primed to possibly try to see some active weather. And even there, it just looks like primarily rainfall. The big takeaway is this. For most of us, while it will be cloudy and dark and kind of look like this, we're unlikely to see severe weather out of most of these thunderstorms today. Bringing them a little closer here up to the northern part of the state, one spot where, again, it's pretty unlikely, I would say, to see severe weather the remainder of this evening in Tupelo. We're 70 degrees for the temperature, but look at that measure of moisture. That dew point at 61. That was 59 down there in 69, yeah, down in Rolling Fork. So that's a big difference there. That almost 10 degrees is the difference between maybe a tornado threat still, and then up here in Tupelo, where it's probably not going to happen. And you go even farther north than that, up to southern Alcorn County, our newest camera in the network here, what we're calling Alcorn South, kind of between Kossuth, Biggersville, and Rienzi. That dew point, again, that measure moisture low, and this just looks like a cloudy sort of day. So you are through with any severe weather chance that far north, up there closer to the Tennessee state line. Bring it back here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar. And again, tracking this storm here, not a fast mover, but moving northward over the last hour. You can see this moving the better part of around 25 miles per hour or so over that time. So we kind of clear that off, get your storm track on that, see when that will kind of make its way through a few other locations there. At about 30 miles per hour, I think we said there. So Hopedale, about 516. Glen Allen, we're looking at about 524 there. Hampton at 525. And then Foote 532 and Irwin there at about 533. If that were to hold together all the way to Greenville, we know we do have some folks out there in Greenville that do watch us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Let's go 60 miles. That'll go a little too far there. That'll at least get us to Greenville Find that in our list there. Right there, about 610. We're looking for you in Greenville. Again, non-severe, could have maybe a few small hailstones. It's a lot of heavy rainfall. That's the main impact out of that thunderstorm there. As we kind of pan it back here, again, this is just showers in and around Atala County, back toward Winston County, stretching up here toward Lowndes County. We'll change our radar site back to the closest one up here at the Columbus Air Force Base. Technically is in charge of this radar there, but as you can see, the northern part of the area, there's just not much. But what we do have is we do have warm and unstable air moving northward, and you can see, if I move out of the way from it, behind me there, back toward Nacogdoches, there is some severe and potentially tornado-producing thunderstorms back that direction there. So this is what is lifting in as we progress into and through the evening. And so the question really is, how far north does that go? And we owe the answer to that just based on how far north does the more unstable air come and that more lower level moisture. As we talked about back there toward Rolling Fork, it's significant. Up here closer to Tupelo, it's not. And we kind of have a front that's draped in between. And that front, well, I showed it as a cold front a second ago, really kind of acts more like a warm front. Somewhere in here is where that is. We don't expect it to move a lot farther north, but near that frontal boundary, I think that's where we'll most likely see some thunderstorms continue to pop up as we go throughout the next couple of hours here. So looking at that hour-by-hour forecast into your Saturday, again, tomorrow this is all over. So let's just get that out of the way right out the gate. As you can see, from 56 at 7 a.m., we're 60 as we head toward 3 p.m., so much cooler. Of course, there will be some showers, maybe quite a few showers around early on in the day, but much cooler air on the way in. This is what we call the triple threat, another thing you'll see only on Mississippi Live. And what we're looking at here on the triple threat is it analyzes rotation, the potential for wind damage, and in particular extremely strong winds, as well as large hail, kind of all on the same graphic here. What you'll notice for most locations, there's not much of each, but we do show some spots here. And this is in alignment with where we had some of those stronger storms back there into Louisiana, that perhaps one of those still holds together later on this evening and tries to produce some rotation in the southwest portion of our area back toward Yazoo City, out there closer to the Mississippi River. That is our concern, that perhaps that's the way this plays out. What you don't see really any wind damage, what you don't see much in the way of hail, though I do see a few little splotches of hail on there. Potentially something we'll be watching with our hail tracker, of course brought to you by True Shield Roofing, coming up here in a little bit. So let's look at Futurecast. Positioning is okay. First thing I immediately see looking at the HRRR model, and this is the very latest run, and these models always miss something, is there is a obvious something missing out there. That storm back toward Greenville doesn't exist on this. And that has multiple levels, and the reason that's important. Number one, that means the model's doing okay, not great. But that also means that the path of those stronger storms back out here toward Nacogdoches there is somewhat more impeded as it gradually works its way up toward us. But what I also note there is that these thunderstorms aren't as strong at 7 p.m. as they should be as well. So let's take a second here. I think this is a worthwhile endeavor for us to do. I'm going to go back over here to radar. I want to see this for a second. I want to compare what we have. Okay, so down here, Louisiana, we've got some heavier ones there. One there southwest of Jackson. The majority is south of that, and then this lifting northward. You know what? I'm going to bring Gabe in here for a second. Gabe, hopefully you're over there at the big monitor. I want to bring you in for a moment. Here's what I need from you here for a moment, if you can. I need you to look at mesoanalysis. I need to spot this exact spot on this front, because just looking kind of like the regional radar trend, I know I got a lot of stuff here, but I kind of wonder if right here, if this is actually our front right there lifting northward closer to Kosciuszko there. So do you have an analysis for me on mesoanalysis on where we're seeing that there?
I can get it pulled up here in just a couple of minutes, so just give me a moment to do that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and wave me down. I should be able to see up there. Go ahead and wave me down when you've got that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, behind the scenes. This is why we have a team of folks, so no one person can do this by themselves, right? So I think that is our frontal boundary. So I will be kind of looking for Gabe there to wave me down here in a moment once he's got that exact positioning ready. Let's go back over here to our Futurecast model on kind of that same shot there. Yeah, instantly I see that it does have some storms back there, but it does not have them as intense as you just saw a moment ago when we were actually looking at the reality of what it is. In fact, it has the storms out there kind of falling apart. So I think underdone are some of our current thunderstorms out there, and that will have obviously a bearing on how things end up playing out. Okay, so let's go forward here just a little bit through the evening. As you can see, looking towards 7, 8 o'clock, it still says that that is the zone. And models have been very clear that this is the zone here where storms will become stronger, to possibly severe, as they try to move in. So that is a spot we're going to have to watch. Again, you can see 10, 11 o'clock tonight. This still shows it all still west there. So this could be well behind on time. As we head toward around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it shows those storms all falling apart. We don't have, again, as much up here a little north of it as well. I honestly think there could be a little more fuel out there than what this is indicating. Okay, before we go any further, I need Gabe again. So Gabe, let's talk about this. I know you might not be all the way done on what you've got there. Talk to me what you're looking at and where this front is on mesoanalysis.
Well, I was trying to look at some of the mesoanalysis with some surface obs that we do have, or surface observations, and you do still have that southerly wind. You do still have that moisture sector. I mean, right overhead, we're talking 62 there just outside of Grenada County, and then 68 down around Jackson. So that's kind of where that moisture and that fuel is starting to climb. I believe that's 68 degrees right there around Webster and Clay County as well. So yeah, you can definitely see that there's a warm sector that's starting to build. So if you were making
a guesstimate looking at that on where you would put it, if you were making a guesstimate, would you put it Atala, Winston,
yeah, I would say
in that
Atala
zone there?
Through,
by the way, every time you touch the screen, it's moving my monitor, so you know.
I'm so sorry.
it's moving links, yeah.
Okay, well,
okay.
I believe that it would be going through Atala, Webster, maybe even Clay County. That's 68 degrees, which it's kind of hard to tell because it has all that moisture right overhead. But I believe that's 68, and what that's telling me is I think that warm front is starting to lift well into Webster, Clay, and maybe even Lowndes County as it continues to work its way into Birmingham as well. So yeah, I would say that we're getting into the southern part of our viewing area based off of those surface observations.
So do you agree with what I've put on links? Again, this is 2 a.m. That's the wrong time, but I want to double check to see if you agree on the positioning on where we're putting that.
Let me hang on. I want to
on
look
where
at it.
on links there. Is that where you would put it now? Not then, but now.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that.
Okay. So I think that. So I'm gonna. For folks at home, I apologize. I'm going to re-rack this particular part of the model one more time there, because that's where, again, I think as we bring it back in here, it's kind of more right in there. So that tells me that there's a little more fuel out there than what that particular model is showing. So we're going to actually have to switch models. I apologize. We're going to kind of change here midstream. We're going to go over to our strike model because I think it's a little more aggressive on how far north things are. Let's go ahead and try this one out for a moment. Again, latest strike model. Again, this is probably a little too far north than where it's put in the front there. But this indicating where we have, again, some of these thunderstorms. And this would be the one there we're looking at for the western portion of the area. That's the one that's back there in Louisiana now. It shows it's still strong to severe potentially. And when it gets up here closer to Yazoo County, closer to Chula, moving toward Greenwood there. This time frame 9, 10, 11 o'clock this evening. So that one could be riding right at the front. Again, I think the front probably poorly positioned on here. I think it's right there where we drew it out a second ago. And that's why I think it's reasonable to keep that severe weather and possibly isolated tornado threat for some locations around the Golden Triangle because of that. I think most locations, again, were not particularly impressed by the tornado threat. But I think in this zone down here, maybe Columbus, Kosciuszko, back to the south and west, if one of these storms can get attached to that front, we're not talking high-end tornadoes, but we're talking a potential where we maybe could see a brief one. So that's what we're watching. And because of that, that's the reason why we always recommend a Mississippi Live weather call, is that alert to let you know, hey, regardless of what we say here, which we believe is important, valid, and usually, hopefully, pretty accurate, you need to make sure that you are knowing where to go in case of severe weather. And this will make sure to let you know when you need to take shelter. It does come with a cost, but with that cost, you do get, of course, alerts for tornadoes, calling you back for tornado warnings if they're confirmed, and then calling you for both severe thunderstorms and major flash flooding. Again, $15 a year for that. I highly recommend it. I think it's frankly worth every single penny. As we bring it back in here to the room-to-room weather center, let's go again here through tonight on our other projection, because I want to show as we continue to see these storms continue into the overnight hours. You can see past midnight there will be rumbles, but the overwhelming majority of what we show here will not be severe at that point in time. So headlining again, most of that non-severe during the overnight hours, but we're watching closely where, again, we have the most of that warm air down here around the Golden Triangle, south and east, as we've talked about for the last few minutes. Upper 50s to maybe low 60s out there for lows tomorrow. And then behind this, much drier and much cooler air moving in from the north and west. And that's going to make sure temperatures drop substantially as we progress throughout the next couple of days. In fact, when I show you temperatures for tomorrow for highs, the reality is it probably never feels as warm in the afternoon as what we're indicating high temperatures should be. So those high temperatures somewhere in the mid 60s. I mean, you can see only upper 50s out here, Tunica, Senatobia, back toward Holly Springs by your afternoon on your Saturday. As we look at the remainder of your forecast there, I'm going to jump ahead to the 7-day forecast here. And again, highlighting the fact that it's a lot cooler behind this, only 63. And again, most spots not quite that warm feeling for tomorrow. 46 Sunday, 49 for Monday. But look at these lows, mid-20s on the way in by the first of next week. That's why we're pairing up with the folks at Absolute Cleaning and Restoration. They're giving away these kind of spigot covers for the outside so that you can, if you need to, cover up your faucet, trying to give those away to folks in the community that, you know, can't afford to buy them themselves. I know we all can't afford to buy them ourselves, but people that legitimately can't. Again, trying to help them folks out there. They have more information on their Facebook page, Absolute Restoration. So you might want to check them out for that. Speaking of somebody to check out, before we go any further here, we're going to try to answer some of your questions here in just a moment. I do want to, again, remind you that to support those people that support us here on Mississippi Live, you know, we have a number of folks that if you would like to support and advertise us, you can, but a lot of folks have already taken that step with us. And so these folks, if you see these logos next to me and you happen to see people in the community or you happen to, for one reason or another, you know, have an opportunity where you need to get some of their business, whether it's the Eat With Us group or really everybody you see next to me here, these are folks that have stepped forward to support us here on Mississippi Live. Without their support, this goes away. It's that simple. This is everything that we're showing you here costs a lot of money. But these people have stepped up to help us. And so we appreciate them all in their different ways. Sometimes you'll see them sponsoring a forecast. Other times you'll see them sponsoring sports-related stuff. But in every single case, whether it's the room-to-room weather center you see here, Mama Justice Doppler radar, their contributions are huge. And so we just absolutely appreciate them. I mentioned we would do this a minute ago. Let's start to answer a few of your questions here for a moment. And you can see some of those on the screen next to me here. And I'm going to kind of bring it back in here onto the regular graphic system for a moment. And I'm going to swing this back over to the radar so we can kind of look at things on that. But just kind of the overwhelming, overarching theme on this. Number one, for most locations, the severe weather threat will be insignificant going forward. I think the yellow zone is accurately placed here on the locations where we're most likely to see some severe weather, and honestly the most likely thing in those spots is a tornado, and it's not a high risk, but we do have tornado warnings back there out into Louisiana, a storm we're watching there, that we do have projections to bring it up closer to Yazoo City and maybe the southwest portion of our area before it weakens. So we are not talking about a high tornado threat, but we're also not talking about a zero tornado threat. Again, your comments on the side here, coming from Facebook, from YouTube, all kind of aggregated, as well as X on there. Benton County, we are good. Carroll County, we are watching. The peak threat probably south of you, but we're watching later on tonight, probably a little before midnight, before the chances start to get a little greater there. Amory, it's mainly south. In fact, you might be completely done there. Appreciate John for supporting us here. And Brenda says, trying to support the sponsors all she can. We appreciate that as well. Did he mention about Charleston? I did not. Charleston, this is primarily south of you. Oxford, I would say south of you as well. Mentioned in Roku, some issues with that popping up. Give me a second here. I'm going to walk into the other room for a second. Hey, would one of you pop up the app on Roku and make sure the stream's working? Appreciate that. I'll have my son double check that, see if it's, at least give another data point on the line as far as that's concerned. Gabe, I've got to get water. I'm going to toss it back to you on this for a moment. It's going to make that chat go away, but if you go back and kind of look at some of those other chat requests, I don't know if you can pull that up on the monitor in front of you, but I'm going to send it back to you for just a second while I grab some water.
So what we're Make sure audio, yeah, it looks like it's coming through. So yeah, what we're continuing to assess is that tornado threat. And as of right now, it still remains off further towards our south. And that line along Highway 82 definitely has some interest for a few potential developments as we head into those late night hours. And so that's where I think, staying weather aware through the 5 and 6 o'clock broadcasts. And of course, we'll be monitoring things behind the scenes if anything needs to cut in beforehand. But that's kind of where I would say is a redevelopment that we could see, but still that best threat going to be remaining further towards the south. As you can see right now, we do have that tornado warning currently in Louisiana, but it has a not exactly a primed atmosphere as it continues to move into that northeast direction into the rest of the Magnolia State. But we are continuing to keep tabs on what's happening here in North Mississippi. Matt, one of the things that I'm trying to pull up is some of the damage that took place in Laurel earlier today. I believe there was a John Deere in Laurel that actually got footage of their surveillance footage of the tornado moving on through and knocking down some signs and things like that. So I'm working to get permission on that so we can be able to air that here on Mississippi Live Weather. But that just further proves what we've been saying all night long, or all week long, should I say. Down south, more of a primed atmosphere. Up here, brief one, not impossible, but it's just not exactly as primed of an atmosphere. So if you pull up storm reports, I think that'll show it a little bit more in detail. Of course, showing that Laurel tornado, but also showing one that was not too far away from us here in North Mississippi that took place early this morning. That was, of course, there's your Laurel tornado, and that is just some of the damage that took place. And of course, right there towards the John Deere as well. Don't get me wrong, very brief. It was not necessarily a high-end tornado. And down south in Tylertown as well, watching a few that happened down there, some of those reports coming in. And yeah, some homes were damaged down there as well. But up north, that was again that damage that we were talking about, kind of closer to home. But so far in North Mississippi, we've not had any tornadoes confirmed. And I think that's a benefit that we'll continue to enjoy as long as possible. But keeping eyes on that as we head into the next couple of hours.
Okay, we appreciate that. Speaking of that, our next live broadcast is going to be coming up here at 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., we'll be kind of breaking down some of the latest, a little bit of what you've seen and some things that you haven't. We're going to be doing a rotation track emphasis on some of our different projections there, looking at how those rotation tracks for the potential for spin-up tornadoes, where those are most aligned on both our HRRR, our strike models. That and more coming up on Mississippi Live Weather at 6 o'clock, an update on things as well. And again, any storm reports that you are sharing with us. Keep it here for the latest. Thank you so much for your support. Hopefully we'll be able to get up. There's a stream with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers as well that they have. We'll see you at 6 o'clock here in the Room to Room Weather Center for the latest.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.